Welcome everyone to our beta launch. We will wait a few more minutes as usual. I'll be cycling these informational slides in the background for now. If you want to follow along, here are the URLs for the code as well as the Carpentry website, which has the information. The program will last about an hour. Here's a brief overview. For those who attended our alpha release, a lot of things will look similar, but there are certainly changes. This is really meant to be a hands-on demonstration.
Ron, I'm seeing a couple of questions in the chat. Would you mind addressing those?
Sure, let me copy the GitHub slide in the chat, yeah. Actually,
and I think we could also, put the, could we share a publicly available version of the slides? We're also going to be recording and putting this on our YouTube channel after the fact for folks.
yeah, let me just share my screen again to my desktop. Oops. So the Carpentry link I posted has all the information you would need, including the GitHub repo and the right URL to the Cadre functionality. For example, if you follow these links, I have slides uploaded. You can click on slides. These slides should be publicly available from Google. You can download them if you want. Small caution, part of the slides are still not uploaded yet. Our technical team leader, Val, will be presenting from his own slide, but we'll update them later on. For the demos, you can follow the links here, which will have all the link to the GitHub page. Well, I guess for everything you will need, I'll paste this page again, where we have the setup page, where we have all the links. Where with the slides, we have the GitHub repo, and we have additional information. Let me just post that in this chat again. So you don't need anything additional, just a modern web browser. You should be able to follow our demo. Without further ado, I think we should get started. I'll stop sharing here. Patty will take the lead from here.
Okay, I don't see the slides. Can you put those back up?
Yeah, I'll share the slides with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's afternoon. I don't know where you are, but thanks for joining us. I'm Patty Mabry with the Cadre project. So the first thing I wanted to do, okay, he's cycling through the slides, right?
I'm not sure what happened there.
Okay. Waiting for,
There you go. There you go.
so you'll move them when I say, right, Sharon? Thank you. You can go next slide. So this is a collaborative project. Ooh, this doesn't have what I added, but that's okay. This is our leadership team. So this is Jackie Wilkinson with the IU libraries. The next person over, she's the project director. Co-project directors are the rest of us. Jamie Wittenberg is the second one. She was formerly at IU Libraries and has subsequently moved to University of Colorado Boulder Library, and she is a co-project director. She's our former project director, and so when she went to Colorado, Jackie took over, which is wonderful. The next one is me, and I'm at Health Partners Institute, where I'm a research investigator. I used to be the executive director of the Indiana University Network Science Institute, and this is where the project started. So I am a co-project director. The next person is Valentin Penchev, who has been our IT director, and he's a co-project director, and you'll be hearing from him later today about the technical updates for the beta version. And then the next one over is Sharon Yan, who you've already been hearing from, and he's another of our co-project directors. And Val and Sharon are both at the Indiana University Network Science Institute, which we call IUNI. And the last one on the last but not least is Rob Van Rennes, and he's another project director at the Big Ten Academic Alliance, BTAA. So next slide. So we all got together a couple of years ago, 2 years, was when we were awarded the grant from the Institute for Museum and Library Services. What happened to that slide? I guess it got lost, the acknowledgement slide, but you can see it here. It's a grant LG 78180202. And they gave us the grant, and in partnership with Cost Share from Microsoft Academic Research and Web of Science, was then Clarivet Analytics, now Web of Science Group, gave us some cost share. We also got some from support from the Midwest Big Data Hub, South Big Data Hub, West Big Data Hub. These are all NSF funded big data hubs. And the rest of these partners you see are partner libraries, or my organization, and then the Pervasive Technology Institute, which is part of Indiana University, IT. And these folks all agreed to join us for the beginning of Cadre and help with the development, as well as become members. So it's a subscription funded going forward. So our initial grant was $2 million all told, and we're now in a no cost extension. And moving forward, we're going to have some sort of membership plan. We're still figuring out the sustainability. So we're in our final year of the project. Go ahead, next slide. So our project was founded on the idea that we had discovered that we had a lot of researchers that were interested in using data, but the big data, proprietary data, bibliographic data, but we were not, libraries, many of them were not able to provide researchers with sustainable and standardized access to these types of data for text and data mining. And it was because it's cost prohibitive for one, for a lot of smaller, especially smaller libraries, but even in big universities, libraries may not have enough funding to carry it out, as well as having the know-how and the expertise to host such large data sets. And so we thought, since we were already doing it in our IUNI, we were doing it for our university in an enclave and on a server, and we decided this would be a great opportunity for us to host it for a bunch of libraries. And we discovered there were quite a few others out there that wanted to do this, and it offers many, many benefits. There is not only the benefit of having the same version and having one group of people, that's this team here, to have kind of control over what data set, how it's cleaned in a standardized format, how it's presented. It allows for a community to be built of researchers. We had tried to get together with researchers before Cadre was built, and we discovered that everybody had a different version and had cleaned it differently, and it was very difficult to compare the research across groups. Our idea is to have this place, Cadre, it's a platform as a service in the cloud where we could have computational needs met, data provided, and a lot of sharing. There was a big emphasis on marketplace, which you'll hear more about for sharing with each other, and being able to have reproducible research assets in the end, which you'll also hear more about. So our 5 pillars of Cadre, I should have listed them, but they are the community, which I mentioned. We need a big community to do this. Access, to provide access. There's a free tier. In building this, it's a national resource. There is a paid tier, which I mentioned from the libraries. There's access to data. That's our 3rd tier. There's reproducibility, I mentioned, and empowerment. So we empower the users, which you will get a chance to see through the beta version. Next. And this is the last slide. So Cadre is, I mentioned, a cloud-based platform. We have it allowed for open data sets are free, and then the ones that are proprietary or paid access, and you have to have permission to get in. We've shared this across a large number of academic libraries, which reduces the cost drastically, so that not everyone has to pay the same cost over and over again at each library to do the same thing. But it also allows us to get, it's so cheap, in fact, that we can get a much better, a superior solution, and to offer it to people who wouldn't get it at all otherwise. We have a graphical user interface to allow for folks that are not as well equipped at programming skills. So this allows them access to it, but we also allow programming, plenty of programming in there as well. And we have that spelled out in the beta version, I think, in the presentations that follow. And then this sharing space that I mentioned, you'll hear more about for sure. About sharing queries, algorithms, derived data results, workflows, visualizations. Was there, oh, I had changed this slide, but it's okay. This is not the most current one, but it's fine. I think I'll just end it there. So thank you so much. Oh, I guess maybe I will end with the last bullet was about community. And so really we need participants. If you or your library is not yet a member, consider joining, have them contact us. And individual researchers, we're going to be putting more and more emphasis on that. And the researchers ultimately will drive what we offer on the platform. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Betty. I think next up is our technical lead, Val. Val, I'll stop sharing here. Please, your slides.
Hello, everybody. I am Valentin Penchev. I usually go by Val. I am one of the co-program directors in the Cadre project, the technical lead of the project, and I'm also the IT director of the newly founded IU Network Science Institute, which we call IUNI gently. And I have to mention a few words about IUNI because it's a unique institution, a unique startup at IU, which is a cross-campus and interdisciplinary institute intentionally found outside of the jurisdiction of schools, deans, and the likes. We work with everyone on campus and in the world, to be honest, with the mission to strengthen the theories, methods, and implementation of network science, and also to foster collaborative interdisciplinary collaboration in research. And this is exactly what the Cadre project is offering us. I need to give kudos to my team. This, who you see here, are the 5 core members of the IT team of professionals at the IU Network Science Institute. We are split right in the middle. Half of our staff is in IT, and of which I'm part of, and the other half is comprised of research scientists, which Shaoran is part of. This unique collaboration of research and IT allows us to craft very interesting solutions to all of our constituencies. That's how we started Cadre 2 years ago. Since then, the team has grown tremendously. We have engaged the help of research data systems at IU and have subcontracted the entire department. We have had help from the UI technical services, UITS, with some excellent development work. And we've also used some cross-project collaborators who work on Cadre and multiple of the other projects to make this work. So we're looking at a technical staff of about more than 20 people who is putting day in and day out to make sure that this project succeeds. Another difference from other technical projects is I've been on a lot of committees where technical staff presents their new cool shining toys to researchers who have very sparse use for them. So for the Cadre project, we approached this differently. We went to the users and asked what their needs are from the technical, on the technical perspective. And we understood the users' priorities. We built user owner consulship. Sharon was in charge in connecting the user stories and so on. We identified 3 completely different constituencies and even more to come on the Cadre project. For the informatics and computer science researchers, they told us they need application programming interface, they need Jupyter notebooks, they need to be able to use their own programming tools that they're familiar with, and they need access to the raw data and cloud compute resources. To the other research, the bibliometric, informametric, and the science of science communities who are not as well versed in computer science and programming, they were asking about interface to the databases themselves. These are folks who have spent their lives working in relational database and now are expanding their horizons to graph and other databases that the Cadre project has to offer. And finally, part of the library and the research, the librarians have come to us asking if we have web interface, if we have the ability to create all those complex query tasks without having the programming skills and the database experience that the other 2 groups have. And I'm happy to report that 2 years later, all of this has been accomplished. We have recorded the user's needs and we've started building the appropriate solutions in Cadre. For the computer savvy community, we have access to the XML, the JSON, the CSV, or whatever raw format the data comes with. We offer containerized tools and packages and access to cloud native technologies on AWS with some extension to Azure. Those are people who have used distributed computing. They know what Spark is. They can use Databricks on our premises. We've also have a new database component. This is all, I'm also proud to say that this has all been accomplished. And with the database access is something new that comes for the first time in this beta release since a few days ago. Originally, we started our graph queries with a combination of relational databases and graph database to be able to capture the ease of use and the familiarity of the SQL language that most researchers have been exposed to with the power of graph database to solve complex network queries. As part of the beta release, the entire backend has been reworked on Janus graph cluster. Some of you may have heard about it, some of you may not. Does not matter because the interface does not change on the front end. Everything that you were able to do on the alpha release is still available in the new beta. However, the Janus Graph backend gives us the ability to solve very complex network queries and graph representations with the same ease, something like Postgres will do on an indexed relational database. And of course, we have the interface. We have guided query building. For those of you who are not well versed with SQL, who are not well versed with other computer languages, there is a graphical user interface that builds all those queries based on easy to use user interface with drop-down menus. There is the ability to choose the most important technology, the most appropriate technology, which we usually suggest, and the user is given control over the resources and the execution. Some more tasks that we have accomplished. The Federated Login. As you probably know, Cadre has been you can access Cadre as a free tier by logging on to Google with your Google credentials, but for an institutional logon, for all of these who have licensed some of the proprietary data sets, we offer a Federated Login through CI Logon, which affiliates most majors, all the majors institutes in the United States and the entire North America continent. We have restricted access to proprietary resources, so even when a set that the university is given access to is used in a published package, only the people who have access to it can use it. We have collaborative resources with the ability to share your visualizations, algorithms, data, and so on with the public. And we have the beginnings of reproducibility, replicability, provenance, and transparency with numbers assigned to each time a package is published and to each time a data is permutated. The federated login is completely up and running and functional. Collaboration and reproducibility are still there, but we continue to work to make them to make improvements in those areas, especially the DOI identifiers, which we are moving from internal DOI numbers to externally available ones that can be published in papers traced back to Cadre project itself. Finally, before I give Matthew the chance to walk you through the interface itself, here is the Cadre infrastructure. This is a very complicated site that I want to leave here on your attention, since this will be recorded for further review. And I and the entire IT team are welcome. We'll welcome your questions and further technical discussions if you guys are interested in it. And without further ado, Matthew Hutchinson, our database manager and our data manager for the Cadre project, will go over a quick review and overview of the new beta interface. Matt?
All right, thank you, Val. If you could stop sharing your screen. There we go. And I'll switch over to mine. All right, hopefully you can see that okay. Oh, no, not yet.
Not yet.
How about now?
Then we can.
Okay, great. Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the Cadre beta version tour. Well, welcome back. I know we have a few people who've been with us since the early pre-alpha days, so I appreciate you sticking with us to see what we've added and see the new system. I'm excited to show it to you and get to grips with it, and look forward to hearing feedback and responses and ideas that you have for next steps. So this is the Cadre homepage you're likely familiar with. I will click through, get started to sign in. So before we got started today, we tried to reset my environment so it'll look hopefully as similar as possible to what you would see the first time you sign into the system. So I'm going to take you in as Val mentioned, we have our federated login system. I know, as I said, some people are returning to these demos, so a lot of this will be familiar, but for those people who this is their first exposure to the system, we wanted to make sure we could show you all the steps so there aren't any surprises if it's your first time interacting with the platform. So your landing page, once you sign in, is the dashboard. So this is going to be your personal environment where you can archive your data and archive your code and decide what you want to share with the community. I'll get into some more detail later on as I go through the process about these different steps. But when you sign in, you should see this section is empty as you haven't created anything yet, and we'll populate this as I go through the demo. You'll see here we have a featured packages section. This one here authored by Sharan, who's going to follow my demonstration with some research. And this will be, we're still trying to decide what is the best metric to use for featured packages. Right now, we sort of pin the ones we think are interesting or favorites, whether we want to have most recent ones or most used, or whether we want a system so you can vote on ones you like or something like that. Let us know how you would like that to work. But we want to have a space where we can really show off the community and what people have been adding and building on the platform. And so you should hopefully in the future still see a rotating list here of different packages that are available. So the first thing we want to do is get some data out of the database and take us through to our query builder. My demo today, I'll be using the Microsoft academic data, mainly because this is our free to use data, which can be accessed by anybody using the system. If you sign in with a university account from an institution which is affiliated with Cadre, with the Cadre project, you'll have the choice of using the Web of Science or the Microsoft data. If you use a Gmail account, then you will likely only, or an institutional email from a university which is not a member of the project, you'll only have access to the Microsoft data at the moment. So we're going to use the Microsoft data today so everybody can follow along if they choose to. So this is our query builder. It probably looks pretty familiar if you've used the old system. As Val alluded to, really, the beta version is not just a few bug fixes and a few changes. Really, everything behind the scenes has been rebuilt from the ground up. But hopefully, as users, you'll see your interface is not drastically different, so you'll be able to continue your work. If you're working on the alpha version, everything should seem familiar. That was the goal, that we could duplicate the same experience while adding all of these new features and redesigning how the system functions. So hopefully you'll see, if you've used the old system, you'll see this and you'll know exactly where you want to go. So I am going to search for all the journals or all the publications from any journal with the word Infometrics in the title. And I think it just brings up the Journal of Infometrics, but we can look at the data in a second. So down here, we can select which fields we want to pull out of the database. These ones we have by default, which are the ones we've kind of, as far as we're aware, kind of the most commonly used fields. But you can see here everything which you can pull out of the Microsoft academic data. And so each of these will correspond to a column in the data set you get in your response. And I'm just going to go ahead and select all of them. My example will be my programming example will be very simple. I only use a couple of fields, but in order to be compatible with Shaoran's more complex research example he's going to show us in a minute, I'm just going to use all of the fields that are available. And then I'm going to assign a name. I already have an October demo. Now, I talked briefly about the citation button here. So if I were to check this box, not only would I get all of the papers from any journal with the word Infometrics in the title, but I would also get all of the papers which have ever cited a paper which has appeared in the journal with Infometrics in the title. And I'm not going to run that now because the query I'm going to do here without the citations takes about 8 or 9 seconds. The citation takes about a minute and a half. So I'm not going to make you sit and watch that, but I ran it earlier, and I'm going to show you what that looks like when we add the citations in. So now our query is running, and we can click through to check on the status. Here we go. So you see, this is the query I just submitted here. And it should be finishing up, 11 seconds. There we go. And so here you see, this is the same query, but with that citation field added. And you see it's about 110, a minute and a half. So it takes a little bit longer, but obviously we're pulling in a lot more data because we're working across the network. But what is a big deal for me, even though it doesn't look like very much perhaps on the screen, if you've used the old system, when you would make a citation request like that, you would actually get 3 files in your response. You would get a node list, and then an edge list, and then another node list, which had different fields in the initial node list. And this, as Val alluded to, is a product of us having 2 separate databases trying to handle these queries. We would have a Postgres and Neo4j storing a citation network, and then we would try and munge the results together into something workable. And that's assuming you didn't get an error message saying that something had gone wrong in the process. Now with the new system, we were able to sweep all that away because the entire Cadre platform is powered by Janus Graph, which is one unified graph database, which can store all of the data and allow us to do these network queries. And so we get a very simple, as you see here, node list and edge list, which should be familiar to anyone interested in doing some network analysis, and should be relatively easy to work with. And let me click through to the notebook, and I can show you a bit more. As you'll see, we've added these URLs now, so you don't need to sort of memorize these long strings of names to understand or to remember which is your query result. You can simply click that link and it'll take you through to the notebook and open up the result from our query. You see it's a fairly big file here because I've got all of these different columns that I've added, but this should be all of the publications which have ever appeared in the Journal of Infometrics. See if I find the title column. Here's our paper titles here. You can see these are all the different papers that we have. You see I have a similar file. I expand the name here so you can see the edges and the nodes from my citation list. So the citation one, it's the same kind of thing. It's going to have all of the same fields, but now we'll have a lot more rows. How many we have exactly? But this is, like I say, all of those papers we had in the initial set plus all of the papers which cite them. So we have a much bigger set. And our edge list corresponds to the paper ID fields, in that we now have a paper to paper IDs. So these are the papers in the Journal of Infometrics, and these are the papers citing papers from the Journal of Infometrics. And so now hopefully it's in a state where it's relatively easy to put it into your favorite network visualization software. Because all of the data is in a graph database now, it is trivial for us to add more levels of citation if we wanted. So right now we just offer that single checkbox for first level citation. but we could do, citations of citations of citations. If you want to do 3 or 4 or however many, I mean, you'd be waiting longer for the results, obviously, because it's a lot more data. But we can build that into the system pretty easily. We can also do references going the opposite way. So right now we're looking papers, citing papers in the Journal of Informatics, but we could go the opposite direction and add papers which have been referenced by papers which appear in the Journal of Informatics. The reason we haven't offered that right now is because as we started adding checkboxes in our current interface, our current query builder, it gets a little unclear, as we just have box after box. And so what we're looking at is the best way to sort of allow, or an intuitive way, I should say, to allow our users to build these more complex network queries. As Val kind of mentioned a little bit, we want to be able to have these really complex network filtering and search applications. So that's something we hope to have in the future. And I think it's going to be pretty exciting when we can do that in a nice intuitive interface. But anyway, I get distracted. So I'm going to take you quickly through a demo and check on the time of this result here. So I think everybody should have this in their home directory if you're following along. This is our Git repo, which Sharon gave us the link to earlier on. If you haven't seen it, it's this one here. It's uni-cadre/beta demo code. You should have the same thing, say, in your home directory here. But if you don't, or if you have your own Git repository you'd like to include in Cadre, come over to the launcher and you can open up a terminal. And from here, you'll see that this is your same home directory as you see over here at this level. And so from here, you can run your usual git clone commands. I think maybe I have it in the buffer from when I did earlier today. Yeah, you see you can do your usual git commands here. And so you can push your code from Cadre to your repository, or you can pull in data or pull in code that you want to use on the platform in combination with data and code you're writing locally. So hopefully, it gives us a way to sort of integrate Cadre into people's existing research pipelines and allow you to collaborate using GitHub as well, if that's your preferred way of working. So I'm going to go to demo 1 because that's my demo. And then demo 2 will be Sharan, who'll follow me. So you see pretty straightforward Python notebook I put together here. And you can say, open up the same thing and try yourself. The only thing I need to add is my query result file name, which is this one. And then I can show you. So I'll quickly run through these. You'll see now I'm bringing in my query results CSV, into my Python environment. So you'll see we have all these fields here. And then with a bit of data manipulation, I'm going to produce a very exciting plot. Look at that. Beautiful. So this is just showing us the count of the number of articles published in the Journal of Informatics over this time frame that we record the data for. Like I say, nothing super exciting. Sharan is going to show us some real research in the next section. But this is just my simple example to illustrate some of the functionality here. I'm going to write this out to a file, and that's going to put it in my home directory because I didn't specify, my working directory. I didn't specify a path. And so here I have the PNG of my file, and so this can now go off into my publication or wherever it needs to go. But obviously, the goal with Cadre is that we want to make this reproducible. So we don't simply want to let people create PNGs, create research like that. We want to be able to allow you to share and archive the work that went into producing your visualization. And so that's what we're going to do in the next step, is how do we share the work that produced this visualization. So the first step is to take this Python notebook and put it into a single .py script. Now I'll open it up here. So this is probably the most useful, I think, template file which we can share with you as users. So it'll show you how to modify your Python notebook into a Python script, which can then be shared on the platform. So if you're not familiar with Python, maybe it looks a little intimidating, but really all I'm doing is taking these steps here, these sections from my code, and building them into a single function, which I've called this create plot function here. And then this part should hopefully be pretty standard. You should be able to copy and paste this with minimal changes into your own notebook. But this is the section, this entry point where you can specify the input and output paths for your file. And so this needs to be sort of standardized so that when we share it on the platform, somebody else picks up your code, they'll be able to input and output files without needing to dig into the code itself, that it'll be consistent for everybody. But I'd say if you have any, if there's any confusion about this part, let us know, and we're happy to work with you or write more detailed documentation if these comments aren't clear. I just emphasize this part because I know this confused me when I came to do it. Obviously, for our real software developers, it wasn't an issue for them, but as I was learning how to use the platform and how to make these changes, this was the part where I needed a bit more hand-holding than the rest of it. But obviously, yeah, take a look, and I'm sure for most of you, it'll be pretty straightforward if you've worked with Python in the past. So now I have my script, and now I want to share this across the platform with all the other researchers. And so now we can look at the new exciting community features we have in the dashboard. We're going to fill out some of the sections here with my work. So we have archives, tools, and packages. So these are the three components or building blocks to sharing research on the Cadre platform. So first of all, we're going to start with the archive. So the archive is the data, right? So this is going to be my, what am I going to call it? Obviously, I recommend when you create yours, you give it better names and descriptions than I'm going to today. Oops. And I'll just put all fields. Sorry, I've done a few of these demos now, and I still can't talk and type at the same time. You have to bear with me while I type it out. So those are my notes, describing what's going to be in there. Obviously, you'll give it a better description for your real research. But you'll notice here we have the same home directory as we saw in the Jupyter notebook, so we can access our files in the same way. This is our file browser, so I can go through to the demo here. Oh, sorry. Need to go to my query results and find the CSV file. So you see I have in mind, those three CSVs, the two from the citation query I was talking about, and then this one, which I want to share, which is my all papers from Journal of Informatics. So I can create that archive. And now my data has been archived, and so it's ready to be used in other tools, ready to be used in a package. Really what happens when you create an archive, with making a copy of the file that has been, and you put in your query results folder in your notebook, and now this archive, this file will persist regardless of what you do to the copy that's in your notebook. So I can come in here and I can make any kind of changes I want to this file, this one. So I could change the file, I could delete it, I could add fields, take fields away, but the copy of the archive will always remain persistent. It's not going to be modified in any way after it's been created, unless, obviously unless you decide to delete it, and then it won't be there anymore. But the data will remain consistent, and so it can be shared or cited by you can tell other people, hey, use my archive. It should be, it should not change in any way. So the next thing I'm going to need is a tool. So the tool is the code that I'm going to apply to the data. So this is the Python script I was showing you earlier. This is why you want to change your Python notebook to a Python script, so your script can be converted into a tool, which is a little complex, I know, but basically we, you just need a, well, I'm trying to think of a better way to say it, but basically we can't turn a notebook into a tool because it's an interactive environment. You need a Python script. So let me give it a name for my tool. Let's close line chart plotting. And again, you'll want to give it a better description than I am. And then here I'm going to navigate into my code directory and select, and not select my notebook file, but select the .py file. And I also have a requirements file, which is my text file, which I created mainly just to illustrate how we use them. If you look at my requirements file, it's simply a text file, which is specifying the versions of a couple of libraries. Obviously, if you have a much more complex program or application, you'll probably have, you may need a specific version of a library or something like that. And so you can do that with your requirements file. And if you select it here, then you can come down to this requirements file drop down, and it should pop up and you can include it there with your tool. This one's going to default to the entry point file. Obviously, if you have, say, another file which has function definitions in it or class definitions, you could include that as well. But this one needs to be the entry point file. That's what the tool, the platform is going to look for. And then if you need to install anything which isn't included in our, current setup, if you have an additional library or something, I mean, most Python tool, most of the most common Python libraries are available. But I say, if you're having issues at that point, let us know and we can help you make sure we have the right software available in your environment. So I'm going to create this tool. And I'll take you through, as you see, it shows up in our same jobs queue as we have for the query reviews. So this section is probably the most time consuming. It takes about 45 seconds. So I'll try and talk through it. So we're not just staring at the screen. But what's happening here is where the Cadre platform is taking that Python script and putting it into a Docker container, if you're familiar with Docker. And so it is ready to be run at a moment's notice when somebody clicks the button and says, I want to run this tool and use it for my project. I say, if you aren't familiar with Docker, don't worry, this all happens behind the scenes. You shouldn't need to engage with it in any way, but just for some context. And so the idea is we put in a bit more time now as we build the tool so that when it comes to run the tool, you're not hanging around waiting for everything to start up and run. There we go, 50 seconds. So now my tool should be available in my dashboard. So the tools are data agnostic. I mean, obviously, as you write your code, it's going to make certain expectations of what the data is going to be like, but it doesn't have any data actually associated with the tool at the moment. It's just the code in a Docker container ready to run when you want it. So you might decide, excuse me, if you write a tool which produces a really great visualization and can work on different types of CSVs or can be used for different purposes, or you might have an interesting algorithm or something like that, you might want to just share the tool with the community without any data associated. And so you can allow other people to use it. And so that's why we now have our publish tool button. So I'm going to hit this. Do I want to make it publicly accessible? Yes, I do. Okay. So now I'm going to head over to the marketplace and we should see my tool available for everybody to use. There we go. So say marketplace and dashboard, they look a little similar at the moment, but the main difference is marketplace, everything in the marketplace, everybody can see. In the dashboard, you can control what is shared publicly and what isn't. The most things in the dashboard are going to be private to your user account unless you choose to share. So here we are. Here is my tool available for use for anybody using the Cadre platform. And if you're following along, or if you're signed into Cadre Gateway right now, you should be able to see this in the marketplace, and you can take a look at it and try it out and add it to your own package if you choose to. So now we have to create a package. So that's the final step. And we go back to our dashboard. We could do it from the marketplace, but just for consistency, I'm going to go to the dashboard. So now when we create a package, what we're doing is we're taking our archive data and we're taking our tool, our code we've turned into a tool, and we're going to associate them and keep them paired up for the foreseeable future. So let's create a package using this tool. So I will call this my info metrics plotting. Oh dear, my typing's getting worse. Also, we should change our spell checker so it recognizes Informetrics. I feel like it's one people are going to use a lot. So that's going to be the name. And then the data I want to use is my Journal of Informetrics Mags. This is my archive that I created just now. And then the tool was the one that I remember I clicked through the card for the line chart plotting tool. So I'll pick others if I want to. These are other public tools that are available, written by other people. I want my tool. And then I'm going to put a description. Plot. There we go. And then obviously here, you'll probably want to give it a thorough explanation of what you're doing. So I'm going to create a package. Package has been created. And so now I have this in my packages platform. Packages section, sorry. And so my package is the combination of my archive data and the Python code together. And so I can publish this. I'll publish it, and then if you're interested, you can take a look and you can run it from your platform. And I'll just to show you that it really worked, here we are. Now in the packages section, we have my new package available for anybody to use. My name and date it was created and so on, and all of those details. So I'll run the package and show you what happens. Or you can run it yourself if you're joining in at home. I run this now. I'll just show you with this one how quickly you see. Look at that, -1 seconds. It's so good it travels through time. But you see, this is the goal here is to show you. I hope that means it worked. But the goal is that we invest the time building this tool. It takes closer to a minute, but then when we actually come to run the application, it'll run much more quickly. We won't have to be waiting around. So if somebody else wants to run your code, they're not having to do a lot of setup or put in a lot of time. So hopefully now we'll come over here. There we go. So now we have this packages directory is being created. And within here, we'll see all the packages that I've ever run, which at this point is just the one. And so we have input files. There's my, the actual data itself. Tools, which will be the code. Yep, you see, there's a Docker file, that Python file, the requirements file. And fingers crossed, we should. Ooh, my output file. Hey, there it is, the visualization. All right, so there you go. You see how everything works, but the idea, hopefully, that you we're trying to show here is that now I have my code, data, and creation, date, time information about when it was created, all in one place, and now accessible to everybody on the Cadre platform. And so that now I can go out to the world and say, hey, I created this cool chart. Here's my research. If you want to see how I did it, log into Cadre, and it's all right there for anybody who wants it to sign in and try it out and examine the code and examine the data and play with it and confirm that. What's the phrase? To be able to reproduce my research. There you go. That's how I should say it. And so, now anybody can take a look at what I've been doing and investigate, interrogate my research. This is the part I think Val mentioned as well, that we're going to start issuing DOIs pretty soon. And so we'll be able to have a package, and then here you'll be able to assign a DOI to it so that when you want to cite the package, in your work, you'll have an actual digital object identifier which you can refer to that'll be permanently associated with your work on the platform. And so anybody will be able to find it and do the same thing. So that's where we are today. I say it's a very different, I know it may look the same, but it's a very different system from before. And I think we will be adding a lot of features. I was going to talk a little bit about features that are upcoming, but I think Sharan is going to cover that. So I think I will finish there and hand things over to Sharan to show you some real research which is being done on the Cadre platform. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matthew, for the wonderful hands-on demo. I'll show a little example where we helped one of our research fellow team from the Michigan State University. I think some of them here today as well. Unfortunately, because of the limitation of our current platform, we cannot reproduce every single piece of their work in this pretty rich project. So if you're interested, please go back to, they presented work back in, I think, March. So we have the recorded presentation as well. So check out their wonderful work. Here, I'm just gonna be reproducing only a small portion of their work. So you can get to this page from our Carpenter website. If you go to demo 2, sorry, so which is part of my demo. So by the way, we are already approaching the end of the beta launch, so I'll try to be a little bit faster. So the link is here. So this is only a mock-up page for now, because as Matthew pointed out, we haven't integrated DOI issuance an integration with Cadre yet. It's an upcoming feature. This is kind of a preview of what's going to look like. So here's a sort of web page or URL describing what this object is, including here the abstract of their project, also informations. You can definitely fill up in much more details for your own scientific sharing. But here you have a DOI number associated with it already. This DOI is now issued by IU library for now, but we will be issuing them ourselves directly in the future. Anyway, so there's another URL you can URI you can see here. If you click on it, it will take you to our Cadre platform. Okay, I need to log in myself first. Sorry about that. So the idea that once DOI system is properly incorporated, it will point to the specific package as Matthew was showing you guys. Maybe actually try Google just to show a different use case. Not sure why my internet is particularly slow right now. Maybe just choose account. So for now, this points to the feature package that Val pointed out in the very beginning, which we'll call MCAC co-authors. Basically, in this particular package, what we are reproducing is the co-author network that the Michigan State team created in their paper. So let's just go ahead and simply run this. This is a public package. Everybody should be able to run it. And again, runs -1 seconds. So you need to fire up your Jupyter notebook to see the results. So I already have my Jupyter server set up previously, so it's relatively, oh, not really actually. I need to restart my server. So this is actually shows what happens when you first log into the system. You need to get your notebook server started first. This takes about half a minute or so. While we're waiting, so as Matthew was explaining, this is only the first implementation of our marketplace and dashboard system. You can see your own results. Here's my query result following Matthew's example, and you can create new test packages if you wish. But in the future, as more users using Cadre, we'd imagine we'll need a much better interface for you to search through all the items you have created. And we're open to suggestions for any user feedback in this particular regard. You see my notebook server should now be ready. So let's go there and see what we have reproduced. Yeah, my browser is particularly slow today. I'm not sure why. All right, so you should see the packages folder. And yeah, MCAP co-authors, that's a package we just run. And there should be, yeah, just 1 minute ago, I've created a layout for the co-author network. So by the way, this is not the same visualization the Michigan State team using their paper, because they use a much complicated visualization tool. Here I'm using Python's own plotting tool. So, but it's the same data. So now, if you follow along and run the package, you already reproduced this particular network. So, but since you're reading their paper, you're probably interested in what they actually did. So to do that, you can go into the package tools as Matthew was showing you. You can actually look into their code and build your own code on top of that. So since we're running out of time, let me just do a quick demo of what could be done potentially. So here's their reproducible Python script. You can look into it, you can copy their code out. And one thing you will notice is really the input file is very different from your query results. because to build a coauthor network, you need to break up each authoring in the paper into individual nodes. So each row now represents an author. So that requires data transformation. So to do that, let's go back to our demo. I actually pre-built a code for you if you want to do that step of data transformation. It's in demo 2 here. It's called a custom query. So my goal here is really try to build a coauthor network from the query I just ran following Matthew's example for all the authors in the Journal of Informatics. So I'm just quickly go through here. You can look up the code in the GitHub. As you can see here, you need a transform data. So to get transformed data, you need another data transformation, which is another Python script. So this is where Matthew was referring to. You can have multiple Python scripts if you're working together. Oops. Let's just look at the script now. So here what I did is basically get the query results and find out what the authors are. This might be a little bit complicated, but all it does is now it produces the data format that MSU team created, and then it will be compatible with the same code that they use to run, to build and visualize their coauthor network. So for time's concern, I saved the time for all of you. So if you go to Marketplace, you'll see there's a ready-to-go tool, which is called the Custom Coauthor Network and Info Transformer. So Info Transformer will do the data transformation for you. We'll skip this step. Let's just go directly to Custom Coauthor Network, where you can create a package directly from your query results. Let me see if I can. Yeah, let me use my own query result. I created this query result as an archive. So remember to include all output fields, as Matthew showed in his demo. Let me just name this author of my data. And you can create a new package. What you have done here is you combine a ready-to-go code by some other researchers with your own query data. Now you have custom co-author my data. So now you can run this. Hopefully this works. This should be relatively fast as well. Yep. So let's see in our own packages, author of my own data. There you go. So I think this, I followed Matthew's Journal Informatics. This is the collaboration network for Journal Informatics. Like this. I think you should scale it down to see a little bit smaller. It's actually, MSU team filtered the network quite a bit. The only collaborations happens more than once are counted. So you can look into the code and change your thing and produce a different network if you wish. So I think this is about time. Our platform is just getting the beta launch. So we will be updating our content and interface in the follow-up updates. Let me see if I can go to the right slides and wrap up today's demo. Yeah, so here's all the links. You can get the instructions and the code for the demo. We also be recording. The whole thing also will be recorded. So please feel free to check it out and ask us questions if you have more. We have done a lot this year already. Matthew, you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to briefly mention we've also updated the feedback button on the Gateway website. So it used to just be a user collection, so you could send us general information, but we updated it so now if you find a bug or if you have an idea for a new feature or you have questions or anything, we have options. So that's a good way for using the platform. You run into issues or you have an idea for something you would like, use that send feedback button and get in touch with us. Or the technical team anyway. That's a good way to get a hold of us.
Yes, and thank you. And now, in end of October, we launch our beta version. A big change in beta version is every user will now persist. So feel free to use our platform now. It might still have bugs. We will be changing the features, but your data will be kept for the future versions. We have ongoing fellow team webinar series. And in the next year, we are hoping to hit additional milestones, including our coronavirus fellowship teams will start presenting their work sometime in the future. We are also planning an all-fellowship meeting, likely in the webinar form, but we would like to all our fellows to meet and discuss the research. In the future version, we'll include USPTO data. Web of Science and MAG will also be updated. The current release has, I believe, the latest version of Web of Science and the 2020 February version of Microsoft. So it's already pretty new, but we will be updating again next year. As Val pointed out, we'll be integrating the DOI and a better user interface. We are aiming for the end of the third year, the September of 2021, for the stable version release. So this is forecast the 2 upcoming webinars. In November 21st, we'll have Samuel Hansen from University of Michigan presenting their work. And the team from Purdue will presenting on December the 9th. So please check us out and sign up for our newsletters, check our website. And thank you for your time today. I think we might have time for a few questions if you have them. I saw there's some communication in the chat. Let me see if I can.
No questions from the chat to report right now.
Well, here's all the links, and the recorded video will coming up online in the following weeks as well, if you need coming back to this tutorial.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is the end
That
of
was
the
fantastic. You guys have made amazing progress. So great.
Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, talk to you soon. Bye.
See everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks
Have
for
a
your
good one.
webinars.